Hello, Farm Fam. So this certainly wasn't what I planned to be my first special video outside of my vlogs. I had a whole different subject planned for this video. But I think what everybody wants to hear and what everybody is curious about this week is the details on what happened with Paddy in her labor and delivery. So now that it is Friday night and I have had 2 nights to process and think about the entire experience, I wanted to go ahead and give you those details, both discuss it with you and show you in detail at least what I was able to record. So trigger warning, this entire story is the story of my beautiful Paddy cakes, my Black Angus heifer, delivering or aborting a calf, and the full story, because it was my first experience with something like this, and definitely something that most cattle farmers go through in one way or another in their life. So Wednesday around noon, I was out doing my daily farm chores, and I did notice that my Paddy cakes, my Paddy girl, was leaking. And at that time I didn't know what kind of fluid it was. I assumed it was her mucus plug, and a lot of people assumed it was her water. Now it was amniotic fluid. I've come to discover she was leaking amniotic fluid. And so at that time I assumed it was just normal labor.
Well, I'm just going to keep a real close eye on you today.
Now, my Highland bull had been here from December until May of last year. So if my heifers got pregnant, then they could deliver a calf anywhere from October right through to January. I could expect a calf. So I wasn't sure even if Paddy was pregnant, but it wasn't completely out of the blue that suddenly she was leaking this fluid, and there was a chance that yes, she was going to have a calf. So I just went about my day, I went about my chores and just kept an eye on her, and she was moving around the pasture away from the herd, looking very uncomfortable. She had a very wide gait, moving very slowly back and forth. And at that time my livestock guardian dogs started to trail her. And normally that doesn't happen. They don't go in the field and they don't bother with the cows until the cows start to get close to birth. Often that's because they will be there to, if the cows allow it, they will eat the afterbirth. So they'll get all excited for that. I don't like my dogs to be out there and stress the cows out during birth, so I did bring them in. But that was another sign to me that she was in early signs of labor. But again, I wasn't too worried about it. However, the afternoon went on and there was very little progression beyond an obvious sign of a calf being uncomfortable. Moving around the pasture, she was trying to get out of the pasture and away from the other cows. And before I went to pick up my toddler from daycare at 4:30 that day, I decided I would put her into the barn. So I went out with a bucket of grain, and I managed to get her into the barn separated from the rest of the cows, in hopes that that would help to calm her, relieve her stress, and give her a quiet, dry, and comfortable place to deliver her calf. So I went about my evening. I went and picked up the toddler. I did dinner. My husband and I were taking turns going and checking in on Paddy. But again, very little progression beyond her just seeming uncomfortable. So about 6 o'clock I called a very good friend of mine. I call him my cow guru. And I had him come over and take a look. He has years of experience and knowledge under his belt with cows. And I just had him take a look at her and give me his honest opinion.
Tell me what your opinion is.
She might have been bumped in a feeder. She's not ready to have a calf because her udder's not full.
Yeah.
But
it's weird what's happening.
Well, in my opinion, yeah, she's displaying the signs of early labor, but She could even been bumped at the feeder, which means another cow has hit her in the side, and she might abort the calf. Now, I'm not saying she's going to, but it's one of the scenarios.
Okay.
It's way too much liquid coming out of her.
Yeah. And she's pooping and peeing a lot. She's having gas.
And she's grunting.
Okay, and that's just started though.
Yeah.
I'll leave her in here tonight. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I have selenium, but what do you think I might need if I have a preemie calf?
A miracle.
Okay.
The biggest concern was that Paddy did not appear ready to have a calf. She did not have a bag like cows should be right before they're about to deliver. They really bag up with milk. And her uterus was not loose enough. It really gets very loose. You can see it expanding, preparing to push a giant calf out of it. So normally that would be very visible, and we didn't see those signs in Paddy at the time. So he was a little concerned, and you heard the advice that he gave me. So at this time I went from preparing for a normal calf to preparing for some sort of a emergency birth. So a couple things you need to know about Paddy is that she is my herd boss. She is the pushiest of my cows. And since the new bull, Kane, came here in the last month, there's definitely been some pecking order going on. Like, they've all been, pushing each other. And I only use one feeder, and I do have 8 full-grown cows. So those two factors do factor into the idea that she could have been pushed and potentially lost the baby. Or Kane could have potentially mounted her and tried to breed her, and in her trying to clean herself, she also aborted the baby. So those are a couple of possibilities as to what might have happened. So anyways, we go about our day, or our night. We came down to the house, but we were going up and checking on her. And after we got both kids down for bed and we went back up to the barn, I think it was about 9:15, 9:30, we discovered that Paddy was lying down and she was having obvious contractions, and she was making attempts to push the calf out. So initially we thought, okay, it's not uncommon for a cow to loosen up within several hours of having to deliver a calf. Maybe she is still loose enough. So we observed, but quickly I saw tearing happening. And the biggest concern with a cow delivering a calf, or trying to push a calf out when it's not ready, is that in the attempt to push out the calf, the cow could also expel her own uterus, and then it becomes a much bigger health risk, and you could potentially lose your cow as well. And I love all my cows, you guys know. I have a great love for all my animals, but Paddy Cakes is like a whole nother ballgame. She is my special cow. She is my friendliest girl, and she is often my mental health break when I need one. I go out and I cut all my Paddy Cakes in the middle of the field, and we have a moment, and I feel all better. So the idea that I could lose this animal that I love was not okay with me. So I sent a video of her pushing and her tearing to a couple of experts that I know, and both came back with me immediately saying I needed to call a vet.
All right, guys. So we've been advised by enough people at this point to call a vet. Paddy's straining but tearing, and so we are waiting to hear back from the emergency vet, and we'll get him out, and we'll see what we can do for our girl, I guess. Fingers crossed.
So at that time I called the livestock vet in our area. I called him at 10 o'clock. And like the amazing man that he is, by 10:25 he was here in my barn working on my cow. So initially he came in and we were able to tie her, move her against kind of a corner, and he was able to do a physical inspection of him. He inserted his arm down into Paddy's uterus, and at that point was able to confirm that it was an abortion. The baby was lost, and she was not ready to give birth because it wasn't fully developed. However, it needed to come out. So he needed to pull that calf.
Got my chains. Yeah.
And so what he did was he was able to pull the legs out, the hooves out enough, and then he got out his chains. He also used a white powder. It's my understanding that that does help to contract the muscles in the uterus and kind of get her all loose and ready for the calf to come out. But I need you all to understand that pulling a calf is such a physically demanding thing. It takes a lot of time and a lot of energy, and it's not easy on the cow. So to just say pulling it's taking that lightly. So he got his chains, and he was able to get a chain around 2 hooves and use his whole body to pull the calf out. And that took quite a lot of time. He had to work with the cow. As Paddy was contracting, he was pulling. So that entire thing happened. And immediately after giving birth, what he did was he administered painkiller and did a physical inspection of her. His greatest concern was that perhaps it was a infection of some sort that caused Paddy to lose the calf. But there was no physical signs of her being unhealthy other than losing this calf. So he assumes at this point that it likely was either stress or a push, or that perhaps the calf was not viable. If there's going to be a calf aborted, it normally does happen between 5 and 7 months. He says his guess, his closest guess, was that the calf that was delivered was 5 months old. And so there was a chance that the calf would not have lived anyways, and so the body was just simply aborting it at that time. Either way, it was important at that time that we get Paddy up. Calves down for any length of time is not good for their health, and the longer they're down, the longer they stay down. So we had to get her up. So we got her up, and he administered painkiller. And he said that at this point, we're just going to monitor her, but she should be healthy and she should recover. And there's no reason that in the future she should not be able to deliver a healthy calf. So that was the positive thing, right? We weren't sure one way or another if we were going to have a calf, so the fact that we had lost this calf, it's a loss, believe me. I feel for Paddy more than anything. You know, she had to deliver this baby. She saw it. It was there on the ground with her, and she knew what happened, and then she knew it was lost. That calf was not alive. And so I mourn, not so much for this calf that I didn't know, but I mourn for my baby girl, my cow. That as a mom, you just, you kind of feel a little bit deeper in those moments. So the vet went about his business, and he went on his way, and he will send me a bill. And rightfully so, I will pay it happily. And on the positive side, I wasn't going to bed at the end of the night with any less cows than I started the day with. However, at the end of the night, I came down and I got Paddy, her favorite grain, and I went up and I spent some time with her and gave her my love, and I gave her a quick check. And even though the calf was only 5 to 7 months developed, because Paddy gave birth, she was starting to develop milk. She had milk coming in, the bag was starting to develop, and because she'd given birth, if we kept, stimulating that, she will develop more milk. So I said, I would hate to see a year be wasted, right? The plan was Paddy to deliver a calf. She did deliver a calf. It was a bull calf. But that she would be able to raise a cow for us, either a cow that would stay on the farm and deliver more cows for us in the future, if it was a heifer calf, or if it was a bull calf, then that would then become beef for us in the future. and she has milk. She's starting to bag up. She's going to become uncomfortable. So I got a hold of a friend of mine who has a contact who would be able to get a bull calf for me, a young calf. And I said, if it possible, I would love to put her to work feeding a cow that in a couple of years could go into my freezer and feed my family. And then in a couple of weeks, she can come out of the barn, she can be with the herd, and she can be rebred. She'll give me another cow in another year, as the plan always was. So I kept her in the barn. I kept her separated from the herd. I gave her lots of water, lots of grain, lots of hay. And as you guys saw, less than 12 hours later, I was able to have a bull calf come here. Now this bull calf is a Hereford Holstein cross. He's about a month old. He has had a great start. He was a bucket baby. In our area, often what dairy farmers do is they cross their dairy cattle with a beef breed, so that when the cows are born, they have more stock to them. Like farmers are more interested in purchasing calves for either bottle babies or, like I am, having a cow, adopt them, when they have a beef breed in them, right? We'll have a better beef out of a cow that is a beef cross than simply a dairy breed. Still good meat, but not as good quality. So the dairy farmers in our area will do that, and then their cows can keep producing milk for dairy purposes, and then the calves are sold off for veal purposes. And I obtained my cow from a veal farmer. He had this cow tied up, you know, in a calf, oh my gosh, a calf crate, I think they're called. A little house. It's like a dog house, but it's designed for calves. And the calves are tied up and they're given buckets of milk or bottles of milk every day, treated really well as far as how an animal should be treated outdoors. But I was able to purchase one from this farmer and bring him home, and in my opinion, he's going to have the opportunity to live a much nicer life before he eventually becomes beef for my family. He will be with a cow that may never have a strong love for him. It's going to take some time to get Paddy to bond with this calf. I have to currently tie her and grain her while she allows him to nurse, but she is allowing him to nurse. And less than 24 hours after he came to the farm, she's no longer kicking him as he nurses. So we will slowly but surely get to a point where she will allow him to nurse. We can allow them to go out into the pasture with the rest of the cows. And this new boy, who I have called, I've decided his name is Beefcake. Lovingly, you know, my girl Patty Cake is going to adopt him, so his name is Beefcake. And Beefcake is the same age as Harriet, my other calf. So eventually he can come out and the calves can be friends and we'll have a great life. And everybody wins. I mean, does this mean I have taken on yet a very large chore and task for the next probably month? Getting Paddy to like really bond with this cow and nurse him and make sure that he is strong enough to be able to be out on pasture with the rest of the herd. Yeah, that's gonna take some work, and that's really a commitment that I'm just still wrapping my head around. As a farm mom, you know, some days the kids cooperate and sometimes they don't. And this calf is now a commitment that I've made, that I now need to get up to the barn every, 6 to 8 hours and tie up my cow and force this calf to drink. It's a commitment, but it's what's best for Paddy. She's not going to get mastitis. She's not going to be uncomfortable. She's going to have the opportunity to form a motherly bond. It won't be as close as with her own calf, obviously. I am very sad that she's lost that opportunity, but it's not a year wasted, and it's hopefully the opportunity that at least she gets to raise a calf. She doesn't have that negative experience hanging over her that the calf died and then that was that. So it's what's best for our family, because it then also puts the beef in our freezer. And in my opinion, it's what's best for Beefcake, because either way he was going for beef, but he'll get to live a longer, more natural life, in my opinion. So that's where we're at, Farm Fam. I welcome you to ask questions. I will try to get to as many comments as I can. But yeah, this has been quite the new experience for me. As I mentioned, being a cattle farmer, you know you're going to experience like traumatic births with your cattle, and you know you're going to experience losses. But it was both a first for me. So that was what made this the hardest. And then facing it with my girl Paddy initially was the hardest thing. I couldn't face losing her, but now I don't think that I could do this thing with the adoption with this new calf. I wouldn't be as confident that I could tie a cow up and force her to get a cow to drink if it weren't my girl Paddy. So there are pros and cons to it being the cow that it is. And on a positive note for what did happen with Paddy's delivery, the vet did assure me that I did everything right. Like I did the right thing. I did good as a farmer, guys. Like I recognize that my cow is in labor. A lot of cow farmers are not as aware and not watching their cows as persistently. I recognized that I should get her into the barn where she's comfortable and alone, and it was more easily accessible for a vet to get at her when we needed that to happen. And when she was in distress, I didn't hesitate to call the right person and get her help. I made the right choice, and I have a calf. I have a live cow, now, today, because of it. And we brought a calf here. So it's not a loss in any way other than the experience and the life that was lost. We have to recognize that baby calf. But 'tis farm life, and I hope it's part of the reason that you're following me and subscribe to this channel. Yeah, and in the daily vlogs you'll see the life, but I also try to do more personal one-on-ones and get a little more in depth about the things that I'm learning and the things that I discover in this crazy life of mine. Thanks for being here, Farm Fam. Cheers, and stick around to watch the crazy adventures of Paddy and Beefcake as they hopefully become mother and son.